Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So, you picked this game this week.
I did, yes.
What made you pick this? Because I have heard of this before. I had the demo on this demo disc that I had, and I remember playing it, but thinking it was too hard.
So, the whole thing we're trying this whole new year is we're going to try to do different genres and not just stick to the same thing. I picked a game and we're like, oh, this is too close to Aconcagua.
Aconcagua.
Yeah, that. And then I picked another one. I'm like, oh, this is too close to Panzer Front. Then I picked another one. I'm like, oh, this is too close to another thing we're going to be doing. So it was honestly almost like a panic pick that I was just like, I found this. I'm like, okay, we haven't done a platformer yet this year, so I'm just going to get this out of the way now.
Well, to be fair, we did Mega Man, but
that was like a 2D platformer. So this is 3D.
Well, we'll get into that. This is not a 3D platformer.
3D graphics.
Yes. But I don't know. I mean, where do you draw the line there? It's it's still played on mostly a 2D plane, so I would consider this a 2D platformer, but I don't know. We'll get into that in a second. But so yeah, 2.5D, like, do you prefer 2D versus 3D platformers? Is there like a preference that you have?
Well, my favorite game ever is Portal, 3D platformer. Although I do prefer 2D over 3D. I just love the side-scrolling aspect of it, like Super Meat Boy or other ones that are slipping my mind at the moment. But I just feel like there's more of a challenge with 2D. But when you get to 3D, then you run into all the problems with where objects are and your depth perception on everything.
The camera.
Yeah. What about you?
I also prefer 2D platformers, but mostly because like 3D platformers tend to go into that, like, you need to collect a certain amount of thing, or like it's about exploring and not about really a challenge. It's more like, can you find every nook and cranny of this level, like Mario or, stuff like that. I don't really love that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love 3D platformers as well. It's not like I'm hating on them, but if I had to pick, it would be 2D.
Yeah, 100%. Like, as frustrating as it is, I love Super Meat Boy. I play it all the time. It's just when you're only limited to those two dimensions, you have more freedom to do more challenging stuff.
Yeah, and I always feel like it's tighter controls usually when you're in 2D as well. I mean, nowadays it doesn't matter because obviously, like, there's plenty of amazing 3D platformers, but at least in this era for sure, 2D was always the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, so I said like Portal was my favorite go-to, at least for 3D. But do you have a favorite for platformers?
I wrote this question down, but I don't even have an answer myself. So I was trying to think of platformers that I like. I love Sonic. I love Sonic Adventure.
Oh, yeah, Sonic.
Those are classics. I'm not a huge fan of Mario, but obviously I like Mario 64. Super Mario Odyssey is really good as well. I don't know. I mean, I've played a lot of platformers, but I don't think I love a lot of them.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Back in the day, this was mostly all we had. And especially on Sega Genesis, which is what I did a lot of my gaming on.
Mm-hmm.
I think everything I had was a platformer for that console.
Also, we haven't mentioned Crash and Spyro, which are also two amazing platformers.
Yes, yeah. But it goes back to Spyro. As much as I love that game, it goes back to what you're saying of it's just a collect-a-thon. Just get all these things.
But I do feel like for the most part, Spyro has tight controls. I mean, we haven't played it on the show yet, but from what I can remember, that and probably Crash 2 and 3 have genuinely good controls for this time.
Yeah, and from what I remember, I could be wrong on this, but for Spyro, they don't really deal with the depth perception issues a lot. It's, I don't know, it's designed in a way where you just know where you're going to go and where you're going to land, and nothing's really a problem ever.
Well, I think it's because Spyro is really not about like precision platforming like Crash is.
That's true.
So like you don't have to do tough jumps as much. It's more about the exploration and finding stuff. So
Good point.
I don't know. I go back and forth on which style I like more. Like I don't really like collectathons that much, but obviously there's some that I like. There's nothing to me like a good just intense platformer challenge where you have to really try. And as long as the controls are good and it's like a well-made game, even if it's hard as fuck, it's still fun.
Yeah, it was like when we did a Wario World, I think, for our old show. I think that might have been that one, but I remember playing that one and I was like, oh, we could 100% this for the show. And you're like, there's no way we're going to 100% this. I'm like, but look how simple it is. And I realized that's the gotcha for those games is, it seems pretty simple on the surface, but in reality, it's not.
Yeah, just get all the boxes and Crash. How hard could it be? No, I mean, I know we're both kind of ready to get into this. So
Yeah.
let's just hop in. Wild 9 was released on September 30th, 1998. It was developed by Shiny Entertainment and published by Interplay. Shiny Entertainment was made famous by making Earthworm Jim, which
Very nice.
I am a fan of. I mean, I haven't really played the games that much, but I loved the cartoon as a kid.
See, I don't know if it was you or someone at work who told me about this, but I never knew there was a cartoon for Earthworm Jim. I've only ever played the game.
I'm almost certain that might even be a discussion on a different episode.
Oh, okay.
We definitely have talked about this before, but I loved the show. And like, I've tried the games. I know they're kind of hard though.
Oh, they're so difficult from what I can remember.
Like, I know you're going to bring up how hard this game is at some point, but this is nothing compared to Earthworm Jim, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's too long ago that I don't want to base it off my memory. You could be right.
All right, well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, this is a 2.5D action platformer.
Now, I know that we kind of talked about this prior to recording of this being a 2.5D, but what makes it a 2.5D? Because you're not moving in and out of the screen. You're just following a rail, more or less.
So I think what makes this 2.5D is like how there's different planes. Like, you might be in a front area and you go to like, you go down, you go around, and now you're on like in front of that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. But isn't the definition of a 2.5D that, like for Crash, you can move left or right, but you can also move forward and backward away from the camera?
Crash is just a 3D platformer.
Don't we classify that as a 2.5 though?
I don't think we do. Did we say that? I don't remember.
I think we did in like the very first episode we ever did.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just, I'm not some expert. I'm just, going for it here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I was just curious about it because with this is like, I feel like this is just a standard 2D platformer with 3D graphics, because I get where you're coming from with the backgrounds and stuff. I just feel like your character never moves forward and backwards. It's only left or right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. Everywhere I looked online, it called this a 2.5D platformer. So I kind of just rolled with it. But
okay,
I understand what you're saying. You don't move in a 3D space pretty much at all. But like, what really makes a game a 2.5D platformer, right? Because like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's why I figured I'd ask you, because you are a little bit more knowledgeable with stuff like this. So I was just, maybe you would have an answer that I didn't know.
I kind of just think it's, it's a 2D, mostly 2D game that has some 3D elements and the graphics are 3D. Like, it's not entirely 2D or even close to entirely 3D. So you kind of just like shove it somewhere in the middle because no one really knows what to call it.
That's fair. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's a fucking platformer. Like, what more do you have to say about it?
Yeah.
So just to get us started, what was your first impression when you started the game?
So this is a big thing. I feel like we got a little spoiled with having cutscenes and having some type of story presented to us in the beginning. It was a thing we talked about early on in the show. And then we got into this streak of just every game we were picking has really cool cutscenes and like provided the story.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get into this and it just is, here's your 50 million game developer logos. And then boom, you're into the game. Now play. It's like, but where's the story?
It's a classic case of the story being in the manual.
Yep. And I looked at the manual and it's like 6 or 7 pages long of this entire backstory.
It's cool that they wrote it all out because I read some of it and I know the general story, but just a little bit in the game, just like a little bit, just something.
A tiny bit. Yeah. Because they have these little quote unquote like text boxes that give you like, oh, this is happening now, do this. But unless you just read the manual, you're like, okay, who are these people and why do I care?
Yeah, so the story is the Wild Nine are a group of like space explorers, and you play as one of them named Wex, which, come on, man. So then the rest of them, besides you, get kidnapped by this guy. His name's what, Karn?
Yeah, Karn.
And you have to go save them and stop him because he wants to use your weapon called the Rig to like take over the universe, I guess.
Yeah, and the Rig is this plasma like Spider-Man whip thing that you have.
They frame it as being like superhuman strength, essentially. Which I mean, fine, but if it's so powerful that this guy wants to steal it to take over the universe, why are there things you can't move with it in the game?
Exactly.
But that's just nitpicking it, I guess.
And also one thing about the manual, I don't know if every game has done this, but this is the first one I've noticed. If you look at the how to set up page in there, did you read that at all?
No.
So it literally said step 1, buy Wild 9. Step 2, buy a PlayStation. Step 3, buy a TV. And it's just like this joke thing of like, buy a second copy of Wild 9 to give to a family member or best friend. And then all this other stuff.
That's ridiculous.
So I like how it has that jokey nature to it in the manuals.
Yeah, I mean, it's the guys that made Earthworm Jim, right? It has to be jokey. And like, this game has a pretty silly tone.
Yeah, it's that weird line between being silly but serious.
It's like silly, but it takes itself seriously at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed the overall silly tone, like as far as killing enemies and them screaming.
Screaming in pain as you grab them.
Exactly. And you're like throwing them in spikes inside of machines and acid, like all kinds of stuff, like just torturing these enemies. And on the box for this game, it actually says torture your enemies. So that is the full developer's intent, is for you to just, fuck these guys up repeatedly.
I like it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, jumping in, obviously the Rig is the main weapon. It's the only weapon. I don't know why I even say main weapon. It's the only weapon. You have that and you have missiles.
Well, yeah. So you have your secondaries, which are your missiles and your grenades.
But you don't get enough of them that it's even really worth it. You just have to save them for very specific things.
Yep. So yeah, 99% of the time you're just using the Rig. And what a device that is that you have to use.
So at first, I did enjoy it. And like, it was fun to mess around with, especially slamming things down and all that, But it does get tiring after a while having to do it.
So it's fine in the beginning. Like you said, the fact of whipping someone back and forth like they would in a cartoon is hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
But then when you have to use that mechanic to solve puzzles and even to platform yourself up to higher things, that is where the most all the frustration comes from, is those two things.
So I did not mind doing it for platforming, like the swinging and stuff. Like, I never had a problem with that. The problem for me was when you would have to carry an enemy somewhere.
Yes.
I don't know what you're supposed to do. So what I would do is if you pick them up, then you jump. It kind of like resets what you're doing with the rig so then you can run with it. But you have to be careful because you might accidentally smash them on your way there.
That's the big thing too, is they don't utilize every button. So when you grab an enemy with the rig, you have to push left and right to swing them back and forth. But you also need left and right to move your character left and right while carrying someone. So if you need to carry an enemy to a thing to solve a puzzle, first off, you slam them to go in the direction you need. And then sometimes when you're running, they'll bounce off the floor and they count that as slams too. And the enemy dies before you even get there. So you got to run back and do it at least 30 more times before it works.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my method ended up working for me where I just grab them. And then if you jump, it kind of like takes you out of like the regular mode as far as like controls go. I don't know if that's the intended way to do it. I don't even know if there is any intended way to do it, but like, especially when you have to use enemies to like destroy an obstacle or use them as a platform, it's just really frustrating to try and like move them.
In the manual, I had to stop. I think it was level 2. I stopped recording, took a break, and I did some research because I'm like, maybe I'm missing something here. No, it's just as we played it is how it's supposed to be played. And even in the manual, it's like, if you want an easier way to carry enemies, carry them at a 45-degree angle. How? How am I supposed to do that? Because I can't run and also look up at the same time.
So you would probably just do what I would do is, you just take it to the 45-degree angle, jump, and then you have them staying there. But I don't really know what the solution to this problem is. Like, essentially, it would have to be another button to like take you out of regular rig mode. But like, that seems way too complicated for this.
And the fact that it's the main mechanic and it's so frustrating to use, you're pretty much fighting this thing the entire time. And you were saying you didn't have a problem with the swinging to get to platforms. There, even in the first world or level, I think I spent a good 20 minutes trying to get to a specific platform swinging. Because it's like when you're swinging, you get to a point and then you lose all momentum the instant you let go and he just falls. And it's like, but I built up all this speed. I should be able to launch myself over to where I need to go. And it never works.
Well, what you have to do is basically just lower it as low as you can.
Yep.
And then just swing until you get as high as you can possibly go and then just let go and hope for the best.
See, I tried that. I tried the lowest I could be, the highest I could be, just the midpoints in between. And like, I just want to collect these gear things. And that's all.
I mean, like you're saying, there's no momentum. So like, you literally just go as high as you can and then just go for it. And, sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the biggest frustration to me.
Honestly, though, and this is going to frustrate you a little bit.
Oh,
I like this game.
How?
So, I played the first level, got a game over. I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to hate this now. This is like fucked. So, I come back to it after like an hour. I play it again, and I don't know, something just clicked for me. And like, I just started enjoying it. I mean, I said this to you earlier, but whenever you play a level, I feel like you finish a platforming level and it's just like you're tapped out, like you're exhausted because it's so long. There's so much going on. But I found that as a way for me to take natural breaks. Like, I played a level and I'm done for the day. I'll come back tomorrow. And like playing it that way, I never got too frustrated because I'm having these breaks between levels. Like, I know that you played it straightforward, just hours. So
no. I this time I had to do it your way. I played a level. I needed a mental break. Came back to it, played again. Needed a mental break, and it's just
all right. Yeah, I mean, I was just saying, like, I feel like the taking breaks and like the coming back to it really made me kind of not straight up hate it. Like, I'm not going to tell you this is like a 10 out of 10 game because it's definitely not. But
no.
I ended up having a pretty good time with it, and I probably would keep playing it, honestly.
No. So Okay, we don't need to get into this right now, but so you were saying about like, oh, how long the levels were you needed a break. How long did it take you to beat the first level? Just keep in mind, to those listening, the first level is the tutorial level.
So the first time when I got the game over, I made it to the very end, and it took me about 20 minutes, maybe
Yep.
more than that. And then after I got the game over, I did it again, and I beat it in like under 15 minutes.
Okay. So I went through, I didn't die at all, I didn't get a game over. And I 100%ed. That's the only one I 100%ed. And it took me a half hour. And I'm like, how is a tutorial level a half hour long? Like, I'm already exhausted and I only did one level.
Preparing you for the rest of the game, I guess. I mean,
I guess, yeah.
I would say most of the main platforming levels that I played were between 20 to 30 minutes, always.
Yep. I don't know. Do we want to break this down between each level that we did, or?
I mean, we can. I wanted to kind of finish talking about the mechanics a little more first.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
So you mentioned 100%ing it. And
Yep.
the way to do that is you collect all these little gears. And I did not 100% any level.
So the reason that you would want to collect all of these gears, there's 99 of them in every level. Well, all the platforming levels, is because that's the only way to get a continue in the game. When you get all 99, you get a continue.
That is absolute insanity, by the way.
Which I need to say, like, I need to apologize up front for ever saying Crash Bandicoot was mean to us, because this game just takes it to a whole nother level.
So I only got a game over that one time and it never happened to me again. Because what I found is, and I can provide examples here, I feel like all of a sudden levels would have a ton of 1-ups in health. Like, which one is it? It's like level 8, level 4. Like, these levels all of a sudden just like throw health and stuff at you, and they're not harder than any of the other levels. Like, it's not like these ones you need it. It's just like the game's like, here, just please take this. You're gonna need it.
And those, what is it? The 1-ups, like, they're not continues. They're just an extra life within your current run.
Yeah, and I mean, I said this to you as well. The way I played this was, I pretty much tried to beat a level with 1 life, unless I found one. Then I wouldn't do this. But if I died, I would just restart the level. That way, I could always make sure I wasn't going to get a game over, because essentially you're just going to start the level again anyway, because you're going to load your save file.
Yep.
I mean, it's all the same. And I did use save states at some points, specifically on the level that we're looking at now, which I believe is level 7, because some of the hitboxes were kind of weird on this one, with like falling into the acid, and I was just like getting pissed off. So, and then this is interesting. On the last level I played today, level 10.
Okay.
The whole level is an escort mission.
Weird. Okay.
You're like guiding this girl through the whole level. Pretty frustrating, but most of it is fine. Like, I made it through most of it. But the interesting thing is, if she dies, you fail the level and you have to start again. But every time she dies, you don't lose a life.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So I felt it was okay to use save states on that level, because I'm not going to lose life anyway, so why waste my time? But yeah, this level 7, is the only level that I use save states in a way that you would consider not good. But, you know, I just had enough. Like, I was getting frustrated with this specifically, so I was like, you know what? I just want to beat this level. Overall, I'm enjoying this, so I don't want to like beat my head into the ground on this.
That was my experience with level 4, where so I started keeping track of every level and how long it took me, because I'm like, with the first one being a half hour long, and now I need to keep track of all this. Level 4 took me an hour and 45 minutes to get through. Did you have problems with that level?
What is level 4?
That's the one where you have the very first boss fight.
No, I mean, I died on the boss a few times, but that was it.
I couldn't tell you what it was. I was beating my head against the wall trying to get through this level. I had to take a break, and I took a break and then came back to it the next day and played a little bit. I'm like, I can't do this. This might be my breaking point. Is only the fourth level in this game.
So that is the one where it's like a city, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
with the taxi.
Yeah. I did have a little trouble figuring out what to do with the taxi. That would annoyed me. You're supposed to throw a guy into it. I couldn't figure that out, but overall, I don't really have much to say about that level. Like, it was fine. Like, whatever.
This is a big part of it. Is aside from the enemies, there's environmental damage too.
Hmm.
On that level specifically, there's fire, so you can catch on fire, and then there's electricity. There was a part where I was 1 pixel over too far, I guess, and my foot caught on fire. And when your character catches on fire, they run involuntarily around. So he would run into the electricity, get shocked, get zapped over to the fire, get caught on fire, run back into the electricity. And there's no stopping it. And then I died. And I'm like, what was I supposed to do in this situation?
Not touch the fire, get good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have anything like that, but the electricity was annoying because you couldn't actually tell specifically where it hurts you.
Yep.
So you just had to try and jump over it and I hope for the best.
I just had so many problems where like there was one time I got caught on fire, ran back into the fire, fell into the fire, and then clipped through the world and died. And that was my last one, and I got a game over with no continues, so I had to start over.
I did clip through the world one time when I was playing today, but that was the only time that I can remember.
Was it, which level was it on? Oh, 10?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just like fell through a platform randomly and then died. Like it shouldn't happen, but whatever. I mean, so in addition to these platforming levels, there's other level types as well. There's the ones where you're riding on some sort of vehicle or beast.
Chasing someone, yeah.
Yeah, and this level's fine. I mean, whatever. It wasn't that hard. Right? I mean, do you have anything really to say about it? You're riding in 3D against this thing.
And you're just shooting missiles at the person trying to kill them. The problem with it is I like the variety in it. However, when you spend half an hour onto a level prior, and then you get into this level, and you spend 45 seconds, 1 minute to beat the level, and now you're back into the half-hour level. It's like, give me a little bit more of a break, and like let that other one be a little bit more time. But no, I get this 1 minute break before I get put back into hell and have to get through another platforming level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they should just be a part of other levels.
Yep.
Like maybe at the end of the level you do this or whatever. There's also ones where you're like falling down a tube.
Yep. Like skydiving after someone.
I didn't realize until today when I played the newest one that I played that you're supposed to hold the button and throw them.
Oh, is that what that was?
I was just slamming the button and he was like flailing around.
Yeah, that's what I was doing too. And it worked for me.
Yeah. But if you just hold the button, you grab them and then you can throw them.
Huh.
So you don't have to just slam the button. You grab them once and throw them, and then that's your attack.
Okay. So what I started to do, because that falling level, first one was taking so long for me to line everything up to get this guy killed, is I would hit them off the wall, then go over to the wall, grab them again, and throw them against the next, and shoot over to the other wall, and just keep smashing the square button. That was the only way to get through that quickly.
And that's what I did until today when I realized if you just grab them and throw them, it's way easier.
But is that a one throw kill, or do you still have to throw them multiple times?
You still have to throw them multiple times, but it's all the same thing. It's just, you're not... Because when I was falling into them like that, I felt like I couldn't tell what the trigger was to throw them.
You're right.
So if you just grab them, it happens every time. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to like try to do it. You just do it.
Okay. Well, that would have made things a little bit easier.
Yeah, all I'm getting at with this is those levels are way easier than probably either of us had the experience of. I just realized
but they were
today.
still easier than the platforming level.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually died on the one I played today because they add in like more environmental hazards. And it was a little harder than the other ones, but still, I mean, it's a 5-minute level, right? So whatever. Yeah, no, I mean, that's all the kind of levels I found. I mean, Did you make it to the second riding level where you're riding like a monster? I forget what level number that is.
No, it must have been probably 8.
It is level 9.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you're riding on like a dinosaur looking thing, and instead of shooting them, you have to bite them. So you have to like catch up to them, bite them, and then repeat. But it's fine.
Yeah, one thing I looked up some gameplay right before we started just to see what's later on in the game that I might have missed. And I saw the dinosaur thing and I'm like, this looks awesome. I wish I could have made it to this.
Even though they're short, I do have to give this game points for having level variety. I mean, even going beyond the different types, I feel like there is so much environmental variety as well. I mean, every level looks different, which I can appreciate.
I love the aesthetic of everything. The character designs, the level designs, just everything going on within the world.
Mhm.
Very nice. I love all the little touches they have. It just, for me, it's just ruined with the gameplay.
Yeah, all right. But I don't know. I just like how you pretty much go to a new biome each different level.
Yeah.
And like there's new enemies, there's new mechanics. Like
Yep.
as much as you may dislike it, I feel like there is a lot going on here.
Oh, no, I completely agree. The world itself within the levels, there's so much going on and everything's unique. Well, kind of unique. But like, say, with the enemies. And in the very first world, you have the guy who shoots the missile. And the second world, the missile pauses for a second and then shoots. And the third world, they hit a baseball, which acts like the missiles. So every enemy acts the exact same way. They just look different and they just do the attack a slightly bit different way than they did prior.
It's all variations on the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you get things like the little green creatures in the mech robot thing.
The little green creatures are so fucking annoying.
I forgot about them every single time I went into a level.
Yeah, and I'm like, why am I taking all this damage? Oh wait, yeah.
Exactly. All right. But then even this footage we're looking at now, you're on some amphibious robot thing. Oh, that's one of the special people.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, see, that's cool. And that's a big thing too, of each level has a special person that you have to rescue. And I love that mechanic. Like, it makes each level so unique.
Yeah, each person like has a little ability or like something that you have to deal with. And your goal is to, I mean, you're saving them, you know, the Wild Nine. So I wonder if I made it closer to the end of the game then, because like I saved like 3 or 4 people. So
yeah, I would assume just once you save all the people, then you just take on the final boss, maybe even using all their abilities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be fair, not all of them have abilities. Like I was saying, there's the girl that I saved in level 10 who has no ability and she just walks and you have to move platforms for her. But
that was the one saving grace of the 4th level, because that's the guy you save who has the machine gun.
yeah.
So they just get on your back and you just hold the shoot button and just run and just tear every single person. I'm like, this makes up for everything I just had to deal with in this level.
Yeah, and I think like each level has the fun moments. Like, you know, there are obviously the frustrating parts. I mean, you're going to sit here and watch me fight this boss for a little bit here, but at the same time, there are moments where I genuinely had fun in every level. You know, it might not be the whole level, and there might have been parts where I wanted to rip my hair out, but I still had a good time overall.
Yeah, levels were fun until you had to carry, like we talked about, you had to carry someone, specifically in that one guy you save who like blows himself up.
That one was annoying. I'll give you that.
Having to climb a tower while dodging fire while carrying this guy with a beam that is impossible to control. I was raging the entire time.
Oh man, I wish I could have saw you just getting so mad at this.
I was furious, especially being so close to the top and then a fire thing hits me and I fall all the way back down to the bottom, or he falls. So I got to climb all the way back down and pick him back up again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that in this game for sure. And I'm not going to disagree that this game needed some polishing, I would say is probably the right word. But
a little bit, it needed a lot of polishing.
You know, I still think I like it. I mean, this conversation is clearly you like are pissed. And I'm just
I
like,
am.
I can understand it's janky and like it's too hard sometimes, but overall, I think about this game positively.
I do want to say, okay, because I don't want this to be misconstrued. Yes, it's a hard game, but that's not why I don't like it. Sure, a game can be hard and you can have fun. We talk about
Yeah.
it all the time. This is just hard because you're fighting the main mechanics.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Like, it's really not that hard of a game, honestly. It's just sometimes it can get frustrating moving the rig around.
Yeah. Imagine if you had the rig because you don't use the trigger buttons. L2 and R2 makes the guy flip back and forth. So then you can run with the directional buttons and use L2 and R2 to move the guy where you need him to be and slam him when needed.
Yes, but that's also holding a lot of buttons for like the majority of the game. Because you're
Not
saying
really.
like hold down the button to hold them, and then the triggers are to like maneuver them.
Yeah. So you're holding square if that's the button configuration you used.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you just have your triggers and then you just have your thumb on the directional buttons. Like you're just holding the controller normally. You're not really doing much more.
I kind of like that he locks into place whenever you do that. Cause like, I don't know. I just don't really think that I had that many problems with it. Like, I kind of got used to it after like a level or two, and then I never really thought about it again. I mean, yeah, there were parts that were annoying because they're asking you to do so many things layered on top of each other, but I just don't think that overall I would say it's bad. I wouldn't say it's a bad mechanic or that it's done poorly. I just think that you have to get used to the game on its terms, essentially.
But the terms of that is just poorly designed. Think about level 2 whenever you have to carry that guy around the plane. So there's those parts where you have to carry the enemy to the spikes, to throw them into the spikes, to use them as platforms to get over the spikes. The amount of times I had to carry an enemy to like the farther spike only for him to blow up before I get to the spikes. I did that probably 10 times and I gave up. I just jumped into the spikes and across them, took all the damage to get to the other side because I did not want to I couldn't solve the puzzle the way the game wanted me to. So I gave up.
But at the same time, like I told you what I did, and like you could just try and figure out a solution instead of just doing the same thing over and over again when it's not working.
What is the other solution?
Where I said that I just kind of angled them and jumped, and then I kind of like walked with them easily.
Yeah, I don't know. I swear I've tried the jumping thing.
I just mean I think that if you would have figured that out, then this conversation might be very different.
I don't think so because why do you have to? You shouldn't have to jump to lock the. If that's what they intended, they should tell you that.
I agree with you. I'm not saying it's like a good idea. I'm just saying like once I figured that out, I had a good time with it because I wasn't constantly killing every enemy as I was moving them. That's all.
I get that. Fine. I understand where you're coming from with it, but I don't agree.
I'm just saying like, all these things that you're having problems with, I was like, I figured out a way around that so it didn't bother me. But that doesn't mean the problems still aren't there, is all I'm saying.
Okay. That's fair.
But all right, we've been talking about this for a long time. So I don't really feel like we've said anything other than argue for like 20 minutes. So we already kind of touched on the presentation a little bit, but
yeah.
The music is amazing. You have to give it that, right?
Oh, the instant the title screen kicks in and you get that guitar riff, like the chugs going on, I'm like, oh, what are we getting into here with this? I like this.
All the weird industrial stuff throughout the songs, like just so good.
I love it. And it just goes with the rest of the level and like the aesthetic that we were talking about earlier. Now you have like these sound effects and like, especially with the enemies like screaming as you're doing stuff to them and on top of like this rock metal music industrial stuff going on, it just all combines together to be just a perfect package of what it's going for.
Well, yeah, I mean, the graphics are good and all the environments are pretty detailed and there's so much variety. Like the music is good. The overall tone is like serious sci-fi yet stupid and silly. Like,
Yep.
it all makes sense together. And I really like that about it.
Yeah, they could easily have. I mean, I will give it that sometimes the levels do kind of look similar between the two, but they do add different elements to break it up. So it's like, okay, you're not on this one anymore. Now we're looking at this one.
Yeah, I mean, they're not all like super different, but like, there's the one where you're inside the beast. There's the original few levels that are more like the typical science fiction stuff. Then there's the destroyed city, and then there's more other stuff too. It's just a lot of variety.
Yeah, and I was gonna correct myself. I don't think it's more so the environments. They do all look different. I think it's the color palette that everything just is the same tones and the same colors. I think if they would have changed that up a tiny bit more, like maybe this world's a little bit more brighter or so forth, then it would have been better.
Yeah, it's a lot of green.
A lot of green and black.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was just generally surprised with how much variety there was, even if it's not crazy. There's still there's a lot going on. But unless you have anything else to add, I think we can move on to the reviews.
No, I complained all I needed to complain about.
So the game got a very wide range of scores, but it did lean positive. I have one bad one and one good one for you. So you can see both sides of the spectrum. And I have a new reviewer for you. So for the negative review, the Adrenaline Vault gave it a 2 out of 5. And they said, while Wild 9 has some interesting ideas and tries to implement them in interesting ways, it gets bogged down in its own mechanics. It also doesn't help that the limited continue feature forces you to repeatedly play through levels that you've already mastered, thus adding to the tedium factor.
I like this person. I want to make him my best friend because that is on point with everything I've just said.
I will say, and we didn't talk about it that much other than explaining it, the continue system is a big knock for me. Like, if that wasn't there and there was an easier way to get continues, I think my score would go up by a lot.
And it's not a thing of like Rayman or something where it's like, oh, here's 5 continues to use throughout the game. You start with 0. You had to build up your continues as you play.
It's just ridiculous and it asks too much of you. Like, there were levels where I did try to 100% them. I just eventually would give up because I'm like, I'm clearly missing a section or like a little hidden area or something,
Mm-hmm. That's why it took me so long on level 1. Yeah, I always feel like the first level is the easiest one to always 100%, so I always tried to do it. And it still took a half hour, and I was missing things and had to go back and figure out where they were.
Well, since I got the game over the first time I played level 1, I just like wanted to blast through it because I was annoyed I'm playing it again anyway.
Right.
And that's kind of how a lot of these levels went for me, especially towards the end. Like, you kind of stop worrying about the collectibles because like, I'm like, I know I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to find them all. So why do I give a shit?
Especially when you get farther into the levels. But honestly, not even that much farther. I think it starts in level 2 where you have multiple paths to go now and you never know which one is the right path. So there's one point I'm like, oh, I think this is the like side path to go get some stuff. It turned out to be the main path. But I'm like, but the other one looked more like a main path than this one. So how is this the main path?
There's no way to know. You're just guessing.
No. Yep.
I do like how they have arrows sometimes that tell you where to go, by the way.
Do they? Where?
I will have to find it somewhere in the footage. But like, for example, if you fall down and let's say you're going right for the whole level and now you fall down and it wants you to go left, they'll have a left arrow showing you to go that way. So you don't like get confused.
The only time I've noticed an arrow is if I died and started at a checkpoint. Then it'd pop up and say, you were going this way.
So it's actually in the environment. Like it'll be like a signpost or something. Like it doesn't pop up. It's like in the environment, which I thought was a cool touch just so you don't get like confused as to what you're supposed to do.
I completely missed that then.
Yeah, that might have helped you find the main path a little more. That's what made me think about
Probably.
it. But all right, in a more positive review, IGN gave it an 8.5 out of 10. And they said, the game's final status is power-packed. The sound is high quality, all the characters are cool looking, and the moving and non-moving background animations are the products of mad creation and the detail-oriented friends at Shiny. And the hard rock music is conducive to torture in a good way.
The problem I have with this review is just how it's, and we always say this, that there could be more to this review that we don't have that we're referencing.
There's a whole
here.
review. I just picked this section of it. So
is it like, it's such a high number and it's like, oh, the graphics are good, but you're not talking about the gameplay. You're just talking about how it looks.
Hey, there's a whole review you can read if you want to.
I know.
I just picked this little clip because, I didn't want the reviews to be about the same thing. I just try and find an interesting thing we might want to talk about. And for this, I'm like, if we didn't talk about any of this stuff, this would be our time to talk about it. Just explaining myself so you understand.
No, I know. I get it.
All right, that brings us to our scores. You can go first.
I was waiting for it because I was the negative one this time.
Yeah, I need to know where you're at first.
So, a lot of positives with just like that reviewer said. There's positives with the graphics. There's positives with the music. But then, as the other reviewer said, when the main mechanics are that bad, like your main mechanic is you're fighting the entire time. And to me, that just doesn't make for a good game when it's like, oh, here's our one main cool thing, but you're constantly having to battle it. And that's your frustration, not the puzzles, but that thing that we made. I did your technique. I went through the game list and I'm like, okay, where would I play this with everything else? I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid. This is a 5.
I thought you were going to say something much worse. So that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to be like 3.5.
Oh, no. That's too cruel. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of positive things with this. If you just made that beam easier to control, I would be sitting so high on this list right now.
All right. So I genuinely had fun with this. The beam does get annoying. There's a lot of tedious things. There's a lot of annoying things. I mean, this is not anywhere near the top of the list, and I'm not going to pretend like it is. But I still had fun. The production quality is great.
Yep.
All the other stuff is amazing. So, it deserves points just for that in itself. Because, how many games have we played that look like shit,
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm going to go with a 6.5.
Okay. That's not terrible.
I was somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5. But we did talk a lot about the negatives. And, there's just a lot of stuff you can't ignore. So I'm not going to pretend like it's not there. Just because it didn't bother me doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, and that I agree with all your positive points that you're saying. Like it does get a ton of credit for all of the artistic choices it has. It's just if your main component is the thing you're fighting, then I just think that's not a great developed game.
I also think maybe they should have had more weapons or more variety in ways that you use the rig or something. Because in the first level, it's cool that you're slamming dudes, but then, in level 10, you're still doing that.
Yeah, it never changes. What you get in, literally everything you get in level 1 is just carried over through the rest of the game.
Exactly. And they mitigate that a little bit with the different people and the different gameplay, all this different stuff, but the core thing you're doing is still the same, and it does get old.
Yeah. All right, well, that puts us at a 5.75. Which will tie us for Alundra, Duke Nukem. Oh yeah, those are the only two.
I would put this above those.
I thought you were going to say that. I want to hear your argument.
I was just going to say I would hear you out between the two if you wanted to do that.
I was going to go between the two. I enjoyed Alundra a lot more than this.
I enjoyed parts of Alundra a lot more than this, but when I think back about my experience with Alundra, and actually, a commenter on YouTube brought this up, which I think we might have brought it up in the episode, that Alundra was actually a lot easier and more fun in the Japanese version.
Yes.
Yeah. But we play the American version, which is way harder. And
of course,
Working Designs doing their work. But I think we would have had a lot more fun if we had played the other version, but that's not what we're doing here. So it doesn't matter. Anyway,
right.
my experience with Alundra is I think back about all the enemies being sponges, everything just kind of, at a certain point, just not being fun anymore, which I think is kind of a somewhat similar experience to this game, but I don't think I quite reached that point with this game yet. I know you did, but I think I probably could have played a few more levels at least. And I mean, I don't know what's in these levels because I didn't play them, but if I got a little farther, I think that I would have eventually got sick of it. But, after playing for roughly 3.5 hours, I was not sick of it yet.
Okay. So you're just going for top of the list?
I don't know. I mean, what's your argument?
My argument is that Alundra feels like a more complete game. Sure, the platforming sucked on Alundra. The platforming also sucks in this one. But just how different the worlds in Alundra are. There's just more stuff to explore and see. They don't provide the story a lot, but it's at least more story than this.
But the graphics in Alundra and the environments are just Zelda, though.
Also true. Probably why I'm thinking so highly of it.
Like, it's literally just Zelda. I don't know. But I don't really even care that much about this. We're arguing between 45 and 46. I don't give a shit. Put it between them.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
it's not like we're arguing for top of the list.
that's what I'm just thinking, like, why are we even having this discussion? Who cares? Like, if this was in the top even 20 or 30, I might argue with you a little bit. But, like, we're in the 40s out of 65 games as of right now. So, like, whatever. I'll think fondly about this game, but it's nowhere near the top of the list. Doesn't deserve to be.
No. And yeah, I never want to think about this game. I never want to touch this game again. It was a unique experience for this time, but I'm done.
It's kind of funny. We've said for a while, when are there going to be more episodes where we disagree? And like, here's 2 in a row.
What was the last one we just? Oh yeah. Although I did come around on the last one.
Yes, but you still weren't as high as me at all.
No. Which is good. I love that we're seeing this now.
Well, I'm trying to like be a little more open-minded going forward. Just like, we're giving a lot of scores that are around the same. And I say this after giving a game a 6.5, but I'm just trying to think like, no game is going to be perfect. So maybe we should use a wider range of scores a little more often. I don't know.
Yeah, but also if we want to reformat what our numbering system is, we could.
I'm not even saying it like that. I'm just saying like, as I'm playing a game, I'm just trying to like, if I like it, if I genuinely like it, even if it has flaws, I still like it. So I should give it a high score anyway.
But you also need to take into account the flaws. I feel like you went from one extreme to the next. Like you went to like, here's all the flaws. I hate this game. And then now it's like, here's all the flaws, but I like this game. So I'm going to give it a higher score.
Well, isn't that what being a reviewer is? I mean, finding the middle ground as to whether like the flaws ruin the game or can be ignored.
Yeah,
and to be fair, I didn't hit the other extreme. I still gave this game a 6.5, which is not a good score.
I'm so glad. In the beginning, when you said you liked this game, I was like, oh no, is he going to go into like the 7s or 8s?
I almost gave it a 7. I was very close. But all I'm getting at is like, I feel like we should try and, widen the range a little bit so we're not giving 6.5s and 6s for the next 10 years. That's all.
But if those games deserve them, which I feel like they all do.
I'm just saying, just saying. Like, I know that we're still going to be pretty harsh on games, especially when we don't like them. But, I'm just throwing some things out there.
I do agree with you because I had the same thought whenever I was picking out my score. And even whenever I was playing the game, I just feel like we're in this nonstop snowball effect of just constantly 5s and 6s. But is that our fault or is that just the games we're playing and choosing?
I don't know. And that's why I've been going through this in my brain. I'm like, are we just being too harsh? Are we like I don't know. Should we change our numbering? But like then you have to go back through everything and fix all those. It's like we're just figuring it out as we go. And
Yeah.
later on we can move things around. We haven't done that in a while. I don't really plan on it, especially with the list being so big now. I don't really feel that strongly about anything, but
You're more passionate back in the beginning.
well, I just mean like, okay, what am I going to say? I think Mega Man should be at 40 instead of 44. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever.
Yeah. And once this list gets to the hundreds long, then it's going to matter even less.
Yeah, I mean, I think like maybe in the end of the year show next year, we can see if we want to move things around. I think that would be a good time to do it.
Yeah.
Just because you can examine the list and be like, instead of changing my score, what if we just move it up to something else? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Also, with all that said, I do think in a few episodes, there might be a higher number. So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next 3 episodes have the possibility to be high numbers.
Oh, true. Yeah. We're not too certain on a few of them, but yeah, I do agree.
I have no idea because I haven't played any of them, but we've been rambling long enough. So that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.